Hey guys, how's it going? It's the Crypto Analyst here, and I hope all of you guys are having a good morning, evening, wherever you guys are from. And welcome back to another Bitcoin technical analysis. And in today's episode, I really want to discuss the price action that's been happening in Bitcoin, why it fell down, and where I believe it's going to go from here. So if you guys are interested, go and stick around for the video, and do not forget to hit the like and subscribe button, as it does help out the channel a lot. But that being said, let's go ahead and dive on into this, because there is a lot of substantial and crucial information discussed because of really just this significant price drop that we've seen in Bitcoin recently. So before I paint anything too specific, I want to talk about the overall view of Bitcoin, what I think that this means in a potential formation pattern that I could see forming. So that, of course, really being one of two things. I think that right at this point, you are either forming a pennant or another descending triangle on Bitcoin. Now, we've talked about that theory in a previous video, but something that I haven't mentioned is the potential that this could be a pennant. So after our recent price drop, if we combined our supports with our resistances, they lead us to solving a pennant, because we have 1, 2, 3 touches on resistance, and we have now 1, 2 touches on support. Now inside of this pennant, I'm sure you guys have realized this by now, but we have a falling wedge forming. So this is going to be more so of the case of the bulls, and then towards the end of the video we'll get into the case of the bears and why I think one is more substantial than the other. So let's go ahead and talk about the potential bullish scenario for Bitcoin in this region, and that is the fact that, of course, you're at the bottom of pennant support and you're right at what looks to be the bottom of this falling wedge. So ideally, if this was a pennant, right, you could either say that it's going to bounce off the pennant support, or that it's going to break out from this falling wedge, because the falling wedge is a bullish formation pattern, and this pennant, ideally with this being support, you would like to have a third touch up here. While this could break down, what looks like it's bouncing off the support of the pennant, in this region you would expect it to go back up. So if you're saying that the bounce from the pennant and the breakout of the falling wedge, those two combined would lead us to higher price action, something that would probably either be this previous high, the 200-day EMA on your 4-hour, or previous resistance on your pennant. Now these are really my three target areas when looking at this, and your 200 EMA is pretty close to previous highs on this last little swing run that you had, or really more of a breakdown and then bounce. But looking at this area, these are really my three targets for Bitcoin, because this previous high correlates a lot to a lot of the previous resistance that you have over in this area, and that's why you see this wick stopping up here, is just because of the sheer amount of resistance that you have over there. But if I'm looking for an upside here, and if I'm looking for this to break out, what you actually saw yesterday and even last night, something that we were talking about in Discord, and something that I brought up to the Patreons, was that you actually saw a little bit of a tweezer double top over here on Bitcoin. And when I was talking to them about this, I said, hey, just be aware, this is a tweezer double top, and that is generally not a good thing to see. Shortly after this, really just the candle after this happened, this thing broke support and came back up. Now, you can kind of call this a piercing candle of sorts, but it is weird, and it shows that there is a lot of buying pressure in this region, because this was a pretty substantial support. And I said, if this thing broke, that could be it for Bitcoin. It could probably be seeing previous lows. Now, what happened here was actually just a beautiful bear trap, because what happened was this had 1, 2, 3, looked like 4 touches, a piercing candle shown by so much buying pressure that it forced it back up, a form, really a sloppy tweezer double top forming, and then this breaking down support, triggering this bear trap, and then this rallying back up towards the upside. Now, things that I think are scary at the moment, as that this is forming a much cleaner tweezer double top over here again, and I think that this is a little bit weird. But ignoring the fact of these tweezer double tops over here, if you're looking at this as a pennant of sorts, now that has broken back into the pennant, if you're looking at this from a bullish perspective, of course you'd be looking for some sort of an upside in this region. So you excuse me, you would like to have a breakout over here, reaching some of these areas, and then maybe even going further and kind of trying to trigger some sort of higher price action or higher highs being triggered, or this just eventually coming back down and getting rejected from one of these areas. And if it does get rejected from one of these areas, especially from the top of the pennant, it is most likely that this would break out and break downwards bearishly, probably to the previous low. But that's just it for the pennant. So again, there are cases for both of these, and we're going to be looking into some of the both indicators and oscillators about what those are telling us as well. But looking at this, guys, that's really the bullish scenario. But I do want to talk about this bearish scenario because the volume on this, and as we can kind of zoom in here, and you guys can see the bottom. I actually have to look over my microphone here. You guys can see that the volume spiked up for a little bit. We got some good volume. It actually got decent. I remember when this was still falling off over here, I was still saying that this was a very bearish scenario. When we were up here in this price range, I was really saying the same thing. There's really no reason to be bullish on Bitcoin or anything right here. If you guys are in the Discord, we had a great time shorting this thing, and in the Patreon as well, because we talked about it all in there. But if you guys want links for both of those will be in the description below. But with this happening, this allowed a lot of opportunity and also a lot of movement. So when I'm looking at this from a bearish perspective, I'm seeing these tweezer double tops, and I think that it's really weird that you're having these so close together, so back to back. And I guess you could argue that this one really wasn't a tweezer double top. I mean, it's ever so slightly higher than the other. At the time, I didn't notice it because I had my chart much like this. And so when I took a glance at it, of course, from this area, it looked a lot like a tweezer double top. And I still think it acted and respected it the same way. But now that you have an even cleaner tweezer double top right next to it, this is telling me really two things. One, that there's a lot of buying pressure in this area, that you literally had a tweezer double top fall down, bear trap itself, get rejected because there's so much buying pressure in this area that it forced itself back up. But it's also telling me the exact opposite thing, that the bears are so set on on making this bearish that they said, all right, screw it. If one didn't work, we'll throw up another one. And that's what this is really showing, is that now you have a tweezer double top that's forming lower than the previous one. And that is significant because you're saying you're not able to get higher price action over here, and you're having a bearish formation pattern repeat itself on a lower time frame, telling me that you're still losing positive momentum in this area. And while your positive momentum is dropping off on your volume, it's also dropping off on your candle chart because you're getting the exact same formation pattern except on a lower scale. So I'm saying, okay, the bulls have lost momentum because what they were used to be able to at least get up here and form a tweezer double top. Now they can only get up to this region and form a tweezer double top. So again, that is not something you like to see on the price action of Bitcoin. But this is, because this is again a bear trap. This broke out of a significant support with 1, 2, 3, 4 touches. It looked like it was being respected. When this broke downwards, it immediately got bought back up, and now it's back into this falling wedge. So there is a lot of both defense and offense in this area. And when you're looking at this and how to trade this, you're kind of getting confused at this point, because you are seeing that it is just this massive war on both sides of these people defending both of their price areas. You know, the bulls defending down here, trying to prevent lower lows, and the bear is really trying to defend higher highs. With that being said, guys, you know, if this does break down from this range, I do think that the previous bottom, if it breaks this low over here, I think it's almost certain that we are going to be seeing either a double bottom on our from our former swing low, or just a full-on breakdown in the price action of Bitcoin. Again, probably leading us somewhere to around 27, maybe even into the 2600 range, probably somewhere around 2700 flat. So that would be, I guess, the bearish scenario. And of course, if this does double bottom over here, I think it would be just as bad as anything else, because what that could create is, again, this descending triangle that could be forming on Bitcoin. And again, that's not something that we want to see either. Moving over to our oscillators and indicators, I want to talk about the MACD and the RSI. Now, this was something very, very clear. I talked about this in a bunch of videos, and the MACD really, really emphasized this point, and I could not say it enough in the videos. But when looking at this and seeing what looked like to be just continuous bullish exhaustion, bearish divergence all over your MACD, this was just asking to come. Now, with this being said, although this was a higher low, a lower low on your oscillators in relative terms, on the larger scale of things, this is still, and I'll go ahead and talk about what I mean. So in short-term terms, yes, it was a higher low, but it was also a lower low on your bigger picture. So let's go ahead and erase these guys. But with this being said, you are seeing your MACD go ahead and round off in this area. So your MACD looks like it's rounding back off. And the question that you have to ask yourself in this range is that because it's rounding off, is this just a bounce or is this actually it? Is this going to bottom out here or are we going to see some higher price action? That's something that you have to watch, because just because this is rounding off, that does not mean it's necessarily finished. This could just be the bounce. You could see barely any bullish volume come back in here and then this thing just dump all over again. Now, what I think is probably something that's going to happen is that you're really not going to see too much bullish pressure, or it's, you know, it's possible. Something that I think would be really cool to set up over here is for this thing to come back down, set, all right, that's not the way I wanted to do it. Probably for this thing to go back up and then not get a whole lot, still show kind of bullish exhaustion, come back down, get a higher low on your MACD chart, and then set yourself up for like double bullish divergence or something like that. I think that'd be something really cool to play out. Just a thought as to what I believe could happen. Really just speculation. However, I think the most substantial, and guys, if you guys have been watching the live streams or any of my recent videos, the most substantial evidence as to this was coming was the RSI. And I talked about this everywhere. I think I mentioned it in Patreon, I mentioned it in Discord, in videos, and on live stream. It's something that I literally mentioned everywhere because I thought it was I wanted to make sure that it was clear and obvious that this was going to happen. And of course, that was the fact that you just had continually lower highs on your RSI. And we'll talk about what I believe is going to happen next. But I want to explain why this happened first, because with forming continually lower highs on your RSI, what this is showing me is that there is continually lower levels of bullish momentum on each swing high, saying each time that they're rallying upwards, they are losing the bullish momentum and they're losing bullish pressure. They're losing bulls every time that they come back to these areas, and that's why they're not able to make it higher. So when I'm looking at this 1, 2, 3, 4 swing lows, getting consistently lower highs than the other ones. Now, with this being said, we can kind of make the same argument towards the opposite, because now we're kind of seeing the same thing from the bulls. So now that this has been done and played out, and again, this was just a substantial shorting area. I mean, it was very evident and clear that this was something that was playing out and happening. So I know me and a lot of other people were able to utilize this. But as for the coming price action of Bitcoin, what I expect is kind of the opposite of what happened up in here in this bearish territory, really to happen, a reverse of that come to happen in the bullish territory. So I think you're going to basically just be able to mirror this, not like exactly mirror this, but you guys get the picture. What we had happen up here with the 1, 2, 3, 4 is going to happen exactly down here with probably something very similar with like a 1, 2, 3. And it's not like an Elliott wave or anything like that. I'm just saying it's probably going to be anywhere from like 2 to 3 consecutive higher swing lows, which is going to set up for some nice higher price action. So that's what we're seeing right over here, and we have to make sure that this was the bottom, because again, what I did think and speculate was that this area could be the bottom for the RSI and set yourself up for a higher low. And I think that as long as you hold this area, you're going to be in a pretty good position for Bitcoin, because that's showing that the sellers and that the bears are getting lower levels of negative momentum, especially over in this oversold territory. So when I'm looking at this, I'm saying, all right, well, they are clearly not as strong as they used to be, and that's evident over here on the RSI 4-hour. So what I would expect from this range is that maybe you do come back down a little bit, but ideally, if this is the bottom, again, this could come down and this could break, and you know that wouldn't work. But speculating that if this is the bottom of this RSI, this thing should, in theory, come and have a nice price action towards the upside if this is respected. So there's a lot of things happening on Bitcoin, and I know that this has been a little bit of a longer video, but I want to emphasize just how much is happening on Bitcoin behind the scenes and how you can actually analyze this, because there is such a substantial amount of evidence as to why what happened, and there was so much opportunity to jump in and saying, all right, you could have jumped in here and you could have jumped in here, and there were so many areas to say this was a perfect area to short. And a little bit of the vice versa. I would say that there's really not nearly as much potential to long some of these areas, but there was a substantial easy entry points for shorts in this area, and that's something that was very significant. So targets for the downside, guys, this is what I mentioned in Patreon. If you guys want to get really my Bitcoin updates and everything and access to all this before everybody else, go ahead, take a look at the Patreon. I believe it's the tier 1. Basically, you guys get access to all this about a day before everyone else does. So I give these Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other cool stuff on the Patreon, teaching technical analysis, and that's, you guys get access to this stuff early. So this is what I said on the Patreon yesterday, guys. My targets for Bitcoin are, of course, previous high over here, 200 EMA over here. These are, and again, I don't want these to be specific points, but what I want them to be is general area. So this area around the resistance, this area probably more specifically, if we're looking at the 200 EMA, looking at the 200 EMA as resistance or as a potential target, and then of course looking at the top of this pennant, even more so as a target. So if this does break up to the upside, those are my targets. If it breaks down towards the downside, I think again we're heading right back to this previous low on Bitcoin. If it breaks that, I think probably 2,700 is going to be my guess as to where it would bottom out next. But well, again, we'll have to wait and see. So if you guys did enjoy the video, do not forget to hit the like and subscribe button, as it does help out the channel a lot. But until next time, guys, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video.